Welcome to the Fighter Index, MMA's unofficial fighter scoring system. In this video, we're breaking down a massive middleweight title fight between Khamzat Chimaev and Sean Strickland for the UFC Middleweight Championship. This is one of the most fascinating style clashes in the division because both fighters want to move forward, but they do it in completely different ways. Chimaev brings relentless pressure, explosive wrestling, and the kind of grappling that can take over a fight almost instantly. Strickland, on the other hand, is built around pace and pressure and one of the most disciplined striking styles in the sport. One fighter wants chaos, fast starts, and immediate control. The other wants long rounds, clean reads, and the kind of fight where patience and consistency start to break people down. We're going to talk about their strengths and weaknesses, go through all four pillars of the Fighter Index, map out the fight dynamics, and see which fighter holds the edge when the numbers come together in the Fighter Index scores. Khamzat Chimaev's biggest strength is how quickly he takes control of a fight and completely changes the pace of it. His game is built around explosive entries, relentless forward pressure, and some of the most dangerous offensive wrestling in MMA. He doesn't give opponents much time to settle. He closes distance fast, forces reactions, and turns small openings into takedowns or dominant clinch positions. Once he gets on top, his physical strength, positional control, and submission threat make him incredibly difficult to escape. What makes Chimaev especially dangerous is that he doesn't just win positions, he overwhelms people in them and forces opponents into survival mode almost immediately. When he gets the kind of fast starts he wants, fights can feel like they're over before they've ever really had a chance to develop. Chimaev's style is incredibly effective, but it also asks a lot from his gas tank, especially when opponents survive the early storm and make him work longer than he wants to. His aggressive pace, heavy wrestling, and constant pressure can become harder to maintain in extended fights, and as rounds go on, his output and explosiveness can start to slow. On the feet, while dangerous, he can be hittable against disciplined opponents who stay calm, maintain distance, and force him to work at range instead of crashing forward. His game is strongest when he controls the pace early and puts opponents on the defensive. If someone can defend the takedowns, stay composed, and drag him into deep waters, the fight becomes much more competitive. Sean Strickland's biggest strength is how disciplined and consistent he is over the course of a fight. His striking is built around pressure, volume, and some of the best defensive awareness in the middleweight division. He fights behind a tight, high guard, a sharp jab, and constant forward movement that forces opponents to work at his pace instead of their own. What makes Strickland effective is that he rarely gives opponents easy openings. He stays calm, keeps exchanges simple, and wins rounds by controlling distance and making clean reads. He may not rely on huge power shots, but his ability to stay composed, maintain output, and slowly break opponents down makes him one of the most difficult fighters in the division to deal with over 5 rounds. Strickland's style is very effective, but it becomes more vulnerable when opponents can take away the clean striking battle. His offense is built more on volume and consistency than sudden finishing power, which can make it harder for him to stop aggressive fighters from walking forward. His upright stance and constant pressure can create opportunities for strong wrestlers to change levels underneath his strikes and force grappling exchanges. Because he fights at such a steady and predictable pace, explosive fighters who create chaos or force big momentum swings can disrupt the rhythm he depends on most. When Strickland is forced to defend takedowns and fight off his back foot, the control starts to fade. Now it's time to break these fighters down using the Fighter Index scale. We break down each phase of the fight and score each skill to better understand the strengths and the weaknesses of a fighter's game. All Fighter Index scores are based on a scale of 1 to 10. Scores are subjective and can change as a fighter evolves from fight to fight. Here's how the Fighter Index works. Each fighter is evaluated across 4 pillars made up of 4 key skills. Every skill is scored on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 represents a non-functional ability and 10 represents a rare or generational skill. Everything in between reflects a fighter's ability in that area, and at the end of the video, those scores are combined to calculate the Fighter Index score that shows us how complete each fighter is. Pillar 1, Fight IQ and Athletic Tools. This is where the matchup immediately shows 2 very different kinds of advantages. Starting with Fight IQ, Sean Strickland scores a 9 compared to Khamzat Chimaev's 7. Strickland is very good at sticking to his game plan, keeping reads simple and making smart decisions over long stretches, while Chimaev can be more explosive and aggressive in how he forces the fight. Athleticism flips hard the other way. Chimaev scores a 9 compared to Strickland's 6, and that's where you see the strength, speed, and explosiveness that make his early attacks so dangerous. In stamina, Strickland takes a clear edge, 9 to 6. He's built to maintain pace over long rounds, while Chimaev's style can become more demanding if he has to work deep into the fight. Resolve also favors Strickland, and he scores a 9 to Chimaev's 7 because of his ability to stay steady, composed, and consistent even when the fights get difficult. So while Chimaev has the bigger athletic upside, Strickland's advantages in fight IQ, stamina, and resolve give him the edge in Pillar 1. Pillar 2, striking and stand-up defense. This one is more layered because each fighter has a very different kind of strength on the feet. Starting with striking, Chimaev scores an 8 compared to Strickland's 7. Chimaev brings more power, explosiveness, and sudden danger when he lets his hands go, while Strickland is more consistent and volume-based. He prefers the punches and bunches method. In the clinch, Chimaev creates a bigger gap, scoring a 9 compared to Strickland's 6. That's where his strength, physical pressure, and ability to blend strikes into grappling make him especially dangerous. Striking defense goes the other way. Strickland scores an 8 compared to Chimaev's 6, and that's a major part of his game. He's harder to hit clean, keeps his guard tight, and does a better job of managing shots coming back at him. In chin, they're even at 8, so both fighters can take damage and stay in the fight. So even though Strickland has the stronger defensive layer, Chimaev's edge in offensive striking and major advantage in the clinch give him the slight edge in Pillar 2. Pillar 3, grappling and control. This is where the matchup becomes the most clear, because one fighter has a massive advantage in the phase that can completely decide the fight. Starting with wrestling, Khamzat Chimaev scores a 10 compared to Sean Strickland's 6. His ability to close the distance, secure takedowns, and physically control opponents is one of the best weapons in the entire division. That carries directly into takedown offense, where Chimaev again scores a 10 to Strickland's 5. Sean can defend well, but Chimaev has one of the most reliable offensive wrestling games in MMA when he decides to force it. Top control is another major gap. Chimaev's at a 9 and Strickland's at a 5. Once again, Chimaev gets on top. He does a great job settling position, controlling movement, and making opponents carry his weight. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Chimaev leads 8-5, bringing a much stronger submission threat and far more dangerous once a fight hits the mat. Because of those dominant advantages across every category, Pillar 3 overwhelmingly favors Khamzat Chimaev and gives him the clearest path to control the fight. Pillar 4, defense, scrambles, and ground survival. This one is much closer than the grappling offense pillar. Starting with takedown defense, both Khamzat Chimaev and Sean Strickland score an 8. Strickland has strong defensive awareness when opponents shoot, while Chimaev's wrestling base also makes him difficult to take down or control. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu defense, they're even again at 7. Neither fighter is easy to catch in clean submissions, and both are capable of staying safe when grappling exchanges develop. Off the back, it's also even at 5, with neither fighter being especially dangerous or offensive from bottom position. The only separation comes in scrambles, where Chimaev scores a 7 compared to Strickland's 6. That slight edge comes from Chimaev's explosiveness and ability to transition when positions start to open up. With most skills scoring even, Pillar 4 stays competitive, but Chimaev's small advantages in scrambles gives him the slight edge. When you step back and look at all 4 pillars together, this fight becomes pretty clear in terms of what each man needs. Chimaev wants fast control, early pressure, and grappling exchanges where he can dictate everything. Strickland wants the exact opposite. Long rounds, a steady pace, and clean striking fight where his defense and cardio can take over. In Pillar 1, Strickland's edge in fight IQ, stamina, and resolve become huge factors if this fight gets extended. He's better built for longer rounds, late adjustments, and keeping the same pace deep into the fight. On the feet in Pillar 2, this is a split. Chimaev brings more power and far more danger into the clinch, but Strickland is more cleaner defensively and harder to hit consistently. If the fight stays at boxing range, Sean's defense matters more. If it gets tight and physical, Khamzat becomes much more dangerous. Pillar 3 is where Chimaev has his biggest advantage in the entire matchup. His 10 in wrestling and takedown offense, along with his top control and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu edge, give him the clearest path to completely changing the fight. If he gets this to the mat early, the fight can swing fast. Defensively in Pillar 4, both fighters are solid, but Chimaev's edge in scrambles gives him a little more upside once the grappling transitions start happening. In messy moments, that explosiveness can be the difference between escaping and getting stuck underneath. So this fight really comes down to whether Chimaev can force his grappling early, because if he does, he has the strongest path to control the fight. But if Strickland can stay upright, defend the first wave of takedowns, and drag this into the later rounds, the pace starts shifting in his favor. Now we look at each fighter's path to victory based on what we learned from the 4 pillars. Khamzat Chimaev's path to victory is built around doing what he does best, starting fast, forcing pressure, and making Sean Strickland fight defensively from the opening minute. The key isn't shooting reckless takedowns from distance, it's using his 9 in the clinch against Sean's 6 to back him against the fence, create body lock positions, and turn the striking battle into a physical fight that Sean doesn't want. From there, Khamzat's 10 in takedown offense against Sean's 8 in takedown defense becomes the biggest weapon in the matchup. Sean can defend well, but Chimaev's ability to chain attempts and keep opponents working makes him far more dangerous once he gets momentum. And if he gets on top, the gap gets even bigger. His 9 in top control compared to Sean's 5 in off the back means Strickland has very few strong answers once he's underneath. That's where the layered offense takes over. Ground and pound creates openings, and his 8 in BJJ against Sean's 7 in BJJ defense gives him real submission threats if Sean starts overcommitting to survive. For Chimaev, the goal is simple. Make it physical early, stay on top, and force Sean to spin the fight reacting instead of controlling the pace. Sean Strickland's path to victory is about surviving the early grappling storm, forcing resets, and dragging Khamzat Chimaev into the kind of long, uncomfortable fight where Sean usually does his best work. The key comparison in scores is Khamzat's 10 in takedown offense against Sean's 8 in takedown defense. Sean may not stop every attempt, but if he can defend early shots, get off the fence, and make Khamzat keep reshooting, every failed entry starts to matter. On the feet, Sean's 8 in striking defense against Khamzat's 8 in striking gives him a real chance to manage exchanges without taking unnecessary damage. He needs to keep the fight simple. Jab, high guard, small steps forward, and constant pressure without overcommitting. The longer this fight goes, the more Sean's biggest advantages start to show up. His 9 in stamina compared to Khamzat's 6, and his 8 in fight IQ compared to Khamzat's 7. If Strickland can stay calm, deny clean control, and force Chimaev to work every minute, the fight can start shifting heavily in his favor. When you put everything together and you calculate the scores of the skills in the 4 pillars, this is where the separation becomes clear. Khamzat Chimaev comes in with a fighter index score of 7.8, driven largely by his dominance in grappling and physical advantage. Sean Strickland comes in at a 6.8 with his strengths built around composure, cardio, and defensive reliability. So while Strickland has clear advantages in how he manages fight over time, Chimaev's ability to control where the fight takes place and dominate key phases gives him the higher overall score heading into this matchup. And that's the full breakdown for Khamzat Chimaev versus Sean Strickland using the fighter index. This is one of those title fights where the first few minutes might tell us everything. If Chimaev can force the wrestling early, he has the clearest path to take over, but if Strickland keeps it standing and stretches the fight, his pace and composure can completely change the matchup. Now I want to hear from you. Who do you think takes it? And does it happen early for Khamzat or late for Sean? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's break it down. Thanks for watching, and if you're enjoying these breakdowns, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and stay tuned for more fighter analysis. See you on the next one.